Hello and welcome to the Pup Mommy. Now with Memorial Day being the unofficial start of summer, we're already planning, if we haven't already, where we're going to go for our summer vacations and our getaways. And of course that means for many of us that's taking our four-legged pup. Now if you're new to dog ownership or your first-time dog owner, then here are some 10 tips that you might find helpful when traveling with your dog so that everyone has a wonderful vacation. So let's get started. Tip number 1, make sure your dog is microchipped. Very important. And if you happen to have adopted a dog, make sure that the microchip has your name on it rather than the former owner. And number 2, along with the microchip, make sure that your dog is up to date on its vaccinations and that you also have a copy of the vaccinations with you that you can put into a glove compartment in your car or that you'll have handy. Third tip, have a first aid kit for your dog. Now, we normally have one for ourselves, or at least we should, but with a first aid kit for your dog, I would include things like, first of all, hydrogen peroxide in case your dog meets a skunk on the camping trail. Number 2, also have some Benadryl in case your dog's allergies may be flaring up. Number 3, I use a product called Vetericin, and I'll leave a link in the description. I like the product very much because it's very good for wound care, and if your dog happens to become injured, scrapes, you can use the product anywhere on your dog, which makes it equally wonderful. Another thing to also have on hand are some gauze, some bandages, or something in case you have to wrap a paw or you have to wrap something else for your dog. Also maybe if you want some ear cleaner or eye cleaner in case you're in an area that they're going to get sand or other debris in your dog's eyes or ears. Fourth tip, cleaning supplies. Now, whether it's for your car or whether you're staying in a hotel, always good in case your dog has an accident and you want to leave the hotel or your Airbnb or wherever you're staying, you want to leave on really good terms, and also for your car as well. So here's tip number 5. If you are traveling on a specific planned route, and like when I was growing up, anytime my parents went anywhere, my father always had the entire route mapped out where you know where you're going to be staying, city by city by city. Sometimes it's a very good idea to just announce a prevention worth a pound of cure. In those cities, kind of have a Google or look for some veterinary clinics, emergency veterinary clinics that are open 24/7. You know, the last thing you want to do is if something happens to your dog and you're absolutely frantic and you don't know what to do, you arrive in a city and you have absolutely no plan. You don't know where any vet is or anything. Very good idea to plan ahead and to kind of Google and have things mapped out, since you're mapping your route anyway, right? Okay, tip number 6, collars, tags, and muzzles. Now, check your dog's collar. Does it need cleaning? Not cleaning, but does it need replacement? Is it a little too frayed? Is it okay? Look at the name tag also. You know, sometimes like me, for example, I can use a name tag for like 12 years. Zarina had one for 12 years. It was in good condition. But sometimes, you know, when your dog's really active, you know, you can get your name tag all scratched up. So take a look at that tag and collar, and then also consider a muzzle. Depending on where you're going to be, if you are going to be in a foreign country, there are a number of countries that have breed-specific legislation, and the only way that you're going to be able to walk your dog around the city is if you happen to have a muzzle. Now, the other thing is too, if you happen to have if you happen to be a camper or a jogger, a hiker, you know, you might want to consider having an e-collar for your dog. I know that's a little controversial, but at the same time, there are e-collars out there that when your dog is trained and you use them properly, you can call your dog back to you. Just in case the dog takes off, you can just press that button, call the dog back, and some of the e-collars work anywhere from half a mile all the way to a little over 2 miles. So something to keep in mind. Now, tips number 7 and number 8 are pretty obvious. When your dog is in the car, obviously you're going to need food, you're going to need treats, and you're going to need water. Same as for any human being. So have those on hand, but also have some toys on hand to keep your dog occupied, especially when you're driving in a car. Another thing is, of course, obvious. You're going to have to make frequent stops for the dog, just as you make frequent stops or not so frequent. For yourself, you're going to have to do the same thing for your dog. And tip number 9 revolves around dog seating in a car. Now, this is really tricky because sometimes when it's just you and, let's say, your significant other or family member, friend or whatever, there's plenty of room in your car, if you have an SUV, for the dog. Now, key here is, do you want to keep yourself safe? You want to keep your dog safe. So if it's a sensible thing to do is to see if you can get, if your dog is small enough, recommend maybe a car seat, a seat belt. If your dog is a larger dog, sometimes they have these dog protectors that you can put behind your back, behind your front seat, so that if something happens and you have to stop suddenly, the dog is not going to go hurling against you or the window and obviously injure itself or both of you. I am not personally a fan of keeping a dog confined in a crate for long periods of time, especially during travel. I'm just not. There are other ways to maintain, a dog and keep it safe in the back of your car. Whatever you want, but whatever you do, don't do a Romney and put the dog on the roof of the car. Don't do that. And the other thing is too, if you are traveling and you happen to have a family, yes, I know that's an entirely different story. So what you need to do there is at least try to carve out a space for your dog amid the children, amid some of the luggage and some of the other things that you have in the car, where the dog is going to be able to at least get up, change position, move around. Another thing to keep in mind, please watch your windows. Yeah, I know sometimes it's the thing to do where you love to see a dog with its head out the window. I have also seen dogs injured that way, and I have also seen when the window is down a little too low, the dogs get out of the car. You don't want that to happen. So again, be careful and kind of work out what's comfortable for you, but also with safety and caution in mind. Now, number 10, also, stopping for sightseeing. This is another tricky thing. So if you're planning ahead, you know that you're either you're lucky enough that you're going to be in the Parthenon, or if you're just simply going to be in a venue that, some venues allow dogs, some do not. So look at it from the perspective of, does somebody have to stay with the dog while the other people go and visit the venue or the attraction, and you kind of take turns. Another thing you can look at is if there is a kennel or a dog sitter available in the area that you would trust. It's pretty hard, and it's a little uncomfortable for many of us because we don't know who these kennels and these sitters are. But again, it's something to consider. If you have to, you want to go, you want to see the Mona Lisa, or you want to, it's one thing to go to the Smoky Mountains, it's quite another to go to a museum. So, and the other thing too is, if you're staying in a hotel or an Airbnb, again, if your dog is comfortable being left in the hotel, you can alert the hotel staff, put a do not disturb sign on the door, especially if your dog is nice and it's not going to be barky, barky, barky. So that's another consideration for you to think about. Now, the last thing is if you are actually flying. All right, finally, if you're flying. It's one thing if your dog is small enough that you can use a Sherpa bag, and I'll leave a link to the Sherpa bag that I use in the description. I have flown on planes with my dogs, and I have also had my dogs fly cargo. But one thing you don't ever want to do is what happened with a lady who was in the news a couple of years ago, is when a flight attendant wants to put your small dog in the Sherpa bag up in the compartment. That is an absolute no-no. The dog has to fit under the seat in your Sherpa bag or in your carrier. I like the Sherpa bag, and I mentioned that because it's a brand name, but it's easy to find, but it's also got venting and smooth sides that, it kind of swooshes so that it fits under a seat. It's not a hard plastic or something that, you might have a little more trouble with. Now, if your dog is flying cargo, again, I have had puppies and I have had adult dogs fly cargo, all successfully. At this time of year, when it starts getting, out in the summertime, a lot of carriers will not fly dogs cargo. And occasionally one or two may, but they only fly at night when it's cooler. So you have to check very carefully, if you're going to be flying with your dog anywhere. that's about it for the tips. I'm sure I probably have left something out. So in the comments section, please, feel free to add any advice that you have for people who are traveling with their dogs during the summertime. And again, also remember, do not leave your dog in the car, while you're out, enjoying the venue without windows or without a breeze, or it's sometimes I think in some places it's against the law to actually leave your car running with the air conditioning on, because the car is running and it's unattended. So you have to be very, very careful about that. It was in the news just recently about a young lady with her boyfriend who stopped and had lunch for an hour and left the air conditioning on in their car. Turns out that the dogs shut off the air conditioning accidentally and the 4 dogs died. You don't want that to happen to you. So on that happy note, please, like the video, please subscribe and if you'd like, and I hope you found this information useful and beneficial. And as always, thank you so very much for watching. I do appreciate it. So bye for now.